Welcome to the What You Sippin' On podcast, brought to you by B3 Business Bonding and Beer. If you're new to the pod, we interview local entrepreneurs, business professionals, in this case, an awesome musician. Just kind of let them tell their story, kind of give us some advice that they've learned along the way, and just hear about different folks within the community. If you haven't heard of B3 Business Bonding and Beer, we do a local networking event once a month, typically at the Rudder in Hendersonville. So please check out our socials to kind of get our next date. Come and join us for that. Once again, we're just bringing people together, local business folks. You can either come, make a friend, or establish a business relationship. So with us today, myself, I'm Dennis Topol with Studio Bank, Mortgage Relationship Manager. I got my buddy Eric Thornton with eXp Realty, William Stiles with Country Financial, and our guest today is Joel King, who is a singer on the band The Wildflowers.
Feathers.
I knew I was going to say that. Anyways, we always started off by asking, what you sipping on? So, Joel, what you sipping on?
I'm sipping on an ice cold Silver Bullet Coors Light. I don't know why they don't pay me to drink this yet, but I keep them in business. I keep the lights on over there.
Well,
so
nice.
yeah.
This could be the start, our first endorsement deal.
That's right. That's right.
So this episode is brought to you by Coors Light, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so why is this your beer? Tell us why this is your drink of choice.
It's because I prefer quantity over quality as far as my beer drinking goes, because we call it fishing beer. You know, like I don't want to sip on something really thick and everything. I like to pound copious amounts of of watery beer, you know. But I like it watered down a little bit. Yeah.
And you're not doing that with an IPA?
No. And yeah, like no matter what the drink is, I'll drink it just as fast, and it's actually safer for me to drink light beer than it is to be pounding anything else. But yeah,
that's awesome.
So I don't know. I mean, and maybe it's just one of those things, you know. Probably growing up in the suburbs or something, you get like a Bud Light for your first beer or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just tastes like beer. I never got into like the brewery culture thing, even though a lot of my friends are. But yeah, I'm a corporate man.
You mean Milwaukee's best? Beast?
The Beast. The Beast. Oh, yeah. Well, in Oklahoma, it was 3 Point beer. And if you go like about an hour away to either Kansas or Missouri, you have to go pick up 6 Point. And we get Beast or Lost Lake, or because it's never like the brands. I don't know. It was always some weird brand right on the border town. But
quality beer for sure.
Yeah. Just, I don't know.
So you're in the music industry. Tell us a little bit about how you got started. We've been listening to some of your songs. I've never heard of Wild Feathers before, but you guys are amazing.
Oh, thanks,
sound
dude.
is
Thank you.
fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
And for as long as you guys have been around since 2010, I'm really surprised I haven't heard it. But kind of talk to us about the origin story. So you started with two other guys. You kind of started the band up in 2010. Take us back to that time when you started the band.
Yeah. Well, I was playing in my own group, and then Ricky and Taylor, the other guys, they had their own bands playing around. But me and Ricky had met, and you know, in this town, you write songs with other people, and you try to like kind of get your songs out there and everything. And we had written some songs together, like a couple songs, and this guy really who started it all, Jeff Sosno, is an A&R guy at Interscope, and he was like, "You guys want to cut some more songs? We'll fly out to LA, like, because we were." You know, our bands, even after starting the Wild Feathers, we still, like, I went home and went out on tour with my old band after we had cut some songs, and just kind of, we told ourselves we were going to start at the top. You know, like, we're not going to get in the van and travel around and play for nobody for years, even though that's exactly what we did. But we kind of, it was like, hey, man, you want to come out here, write some songs, and see how this thing goes, kind of joining our forces. And we met Taylor. He was living in Texas at the time, and convinced him to move out here because we had a lot of mutual friends, and we were looking for. We really consciously started this to be like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or the Eagles, or the band, or something, or even the Beatles. That, like, you know, not just one singer, not just one face. It was something more special than we could do on our own. And it took off. It we wrote like 5 or 6 songs, and we were thinking, man, this is a lot better than our old groups and stuff. So we dedicated ourselves to it and everything. And Interscope signed us for about 8 months, and we spent that time in LA writing and starting the first record.
And what year is this? This is
2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think me and Ricky first started playing in 2009, but that's really when we like started taking it serious. And we got signed, and we were like, it was 8 months in, and Interscope dropped the entire rock department. Like, they bought American Idol. and then canned the entire rock department. So we got dropped right off the bat.
They
But
bought American Idol.
bought the show, the American Idol. It was Jimmy Iovine, which we got to meet, and that's another story. But but yeah, so we got together just to write songs, and like, man, this could be a really cool project to do, and we're done touring in the van and playing for nobody. But then we got dropped, and then we were like, okay, what are we gonna do? I guess get in the van and go play for nobody again. So then we started playing, and then Warner Brothers picked us up a year or so later, and we got
That's when
on
you
a lot
first
of good
got your big
tours.
record in 2013, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we recorded it in 2012, but so between 10 and 12, we played all over the place. And like Paul Simon took us out. We didn't have a label. We barely made it to the gig, every gig, and that kind of got the ball rolling. And we were just touring and stuff. So and that got us signed.
So this is something I only see on the movies, right? So
Yeah.
like I've got no frame of reference like for what you're talking about other than just kind of what I picture. But when you guys
thinking
first
like
get
the new
together,
Elvis movie or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you picked up that way.
but when you guys first get together and you're writing songs and stuff, jamming out, like who decides? All right, man, I'm lead vocals, I'm lead guitar. Like how's that all work? Like how do you guys come to an agreement?
It's usually whoever like kind of has the initial idea will sing, but we also have it in mind of like what's different about this band that's no other band is doing, or I mean, there's plenty of other people doing it, but that like the identity of the group is to have these harmonies and multiple singers and everything like that. So we'll be like, somebody will come in with something like, well, what else can go on this song, or the next part, or the bridge, or the pre-chorus, or something like that? How can we utilize what we have, all the tools we have? And so we kind of just approach it that way. I mean, there's also songs that like, hey, I just wrote this one in 5 minutes, I'm singing the whole thing. That happens too. But yeah, we try to make it as wild, feathery as we can. Yeah.
Very cool.
Not flowery, right? Feathery.
Fa-
Yeah, I got to redeem myself.
So flowery.
So you didn't come here with the band. You're from Oklahoma.
No, yeah.
So what brought you to Nashville? Obviously music, but what was that move like?
That was, I mean, I was touring with my old band, The Effects, in Oklahoma, all around, and then our bass player got his girlfriend pregnant. The band got busted for pot, and all kinds of stuff happened. And so I moved out. I toured with a lot of people, and we had a manager out here, and so after the tour, the band was kind of dissolving, and I came out here and kept it going and everything, and but until the Wild Feathers took off, it was kind of, you do a demo deal, or you do some sort of, you get a good tour or something, but just keeping our head above water a little bit. But I was still slinging coffee at Edge Hill Coffee down there.
You're a barista, okay.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But when we started doing the Wild Feathers thing, so he's just kind of scraping by and everything.
Yeah.
So do even folks from Oklahoma that are playing out there, is it a lot of their goal to get here to Nashville, or is it just kind of depend on?
I don't know. I don't know what their goals are.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of casinos, so usually you play like 3 hours of covers and everything, a lot like Broadway downtown. So I mean, you can reach that goal. I mean, reach that goal in high school, like so. There's kind of not a whole lot to do, even as an original band. You want to write songs and do it professionally. There wasn't much to do. And it's way cooler now than it was then. When I was playing, I guess from like 2002 to 2006, all around, it was like Limp Bizkit was big, and a lot of like rap rock thing was big.
Yeah, Jay-Z, Limp Bizkit.
It was like, and hard rock. I mean, there was a lot of like,
Linkin
remember like
Park.
Screamo and stuff like that? Like that was a big deal. and my band,
Slipknot.
yeah,
Remember
my band
Slipknot.
was like,
We know you're cool, William.
Poppy.
You don't have to keep
Yeah.
naming off all your
Not-
bands,
yeah.
man.
It's very nostalgic, sorry.
yeah, oh man. Yeah, well, see, now I listen to that. It's not that bad. But back then I hated it. I was like, man, this is not me. But thank you, Coors Light.
So the whole
yeah.
getting dropped by the label, man. I mean, just that brings into like perspective just the entire business aspect that you have to
yeah.
worry about with this career, man. I mean, there's just got to be some crazy stuff with that.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, it's a lot of high highs and low lows most of the time, yeah.
I wonder
Feast or
what your
famine.
mindset is during that process, because it's got to be, like you said, a high and a low. It's so high, like label deal, right? That's a big
Yeah.
deal. Your mindset is, okay, this is going to
Yeah.
shoot me in that direction, and then all of a sudden they drop you. How do you fix your mindset to say, okay, I'm going to get back over that slump and try it again?
Well, I think that, I mean, we'd all played in our other bands, so we know how to like semi be proactive and make money, or like, here's the run we could do, and here's some markets where we can draw some people, and we'll kind of record our own our own demos and try to sell those until we can get some more money to make some better ones. But like when we got dropped, I had a van at that time, had 320,000 miles on it. It was like, I would say we barely made it to the gigs. It was the truth.
What was the name of it?
And
there was a name on it, wasn't it?
We'd call it Vanna White or Van Morrison, just any sort of thing like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that we just kind of went back to what we always knew, and playing clubs and trying to get cuts on other people's records, right, and doing just anything we can do to make money. And yeah, I guess, I mean, we just hit the road again and tried to make it. And what I was going to say is, when Paul Simon brought us out on that tour, we had to price match his CDs. So his CDs were like $25 or $30 or something like that to buy the CD there. I think maybe $20. But we only had 4-song demo recorded like on my 8-track. It was old for the time. It was old at the time. And so we had to sell our 4-song like demo for $20 or whatever, right beside Paul Simon's, and we had to copy them like in the car as we're like going down the road on a computer and everything. It was low rent.
What year was this?
That was 2011, I think, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you set up like a run like that, like a tour, obviously you have a manager that does that. But what does that look like? Like if you're going to a certain area that you have, like, I'm assuming at that point, like fans, or do you just roll the dice and say, hey, we hope people know us down there in southern Georgia, wherever that's at?
At that point, we didn't have any fans, really. I mean, there was a big buzz around Nashville and stuff because we got signed and everything, few and far between, especially for like a label like Interscope at that time. So there was a buzz, and we had a little crowd here, and we did really good. But we also did a thing where we played a residency tour for like a month or two, where we played every Monday in Memphis. Tuesday was Nashville. Wednesday was Birmingham. Thursday, Knoxville. Friday, or we did one in Oxford. But anyway, so it was a whole week, and we just did that for a whole month. Like we were at what's the cannery, the upstairs, the small room, High Watt. Like every Tuesday, we're at the High Watt for this month, And so we did that, and I think it helped. I think it built up a little crowd. Like, I guess come back next week, and got to meet a lot of people and play the places over and over again, kind of develop a fan base.
So it sounds like you were just very consistent in that model, right? And that kind of picked up a little bit of momentum for you guys. Yeah.
I mean, we've been in bands. We know what to do as far as like, we're going to make the music, we're going to sell it, and we're going to play these shows and try to do the most of each one. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, and we got a few years of doing that. Like, I wouldn't do that now. If something happened, I was like, I'll play for somebody else or write or whatever else. But I don't think I could get in the van and like live for like a month and a half playing, every Wednesday in Birmingham.
So when a band comes together, and you mentioned some of the, the business things or the appeal kind of stuff that you have to think of as you're writing music, as you're saying this person's on this part or lead vocals, a guitar. Is that, I mean, what's that like whenever you've got a manager, maybe somebody from a business perspective trying to tell you, like, hey, this is how this should be, and you're like, well, artistically, this is what we like. I mean, do you have a tough time marrying those things together sometimes, or?
No, I mean, it can be a struggle, but the producer, like the producer producing a record, usually keeps it pretty cohesive and stuff, and we kind of pick out the songs. Like, we've got too many of this sound, like here's like a kind of a ballad, so let's pick the best ones of that, and it's because our music, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we can go on the road with Willie Nelson, tour with him 3 times, and we're like, oh, there's a little rock for that, and or some of the fans will say that, and then like Paul Simon will be like, well, what's this country band opening up for Paul Simon for? So we kind of get the country rock thing all the time, like mix up, but bands I like do that, I mean, the Eagles do that, like, I mean, people are like, oh, is that country or is it rock and roll? It's like, it's probably just American music, but we consciously try to keep a certain vibe going, and it kind of works out. We've had Jay Joyce produced our first 3 records, and he keeps us in check on that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And he's like a super producer, right? I feel like I know that name, like big time artist.
Yeah, he's like, I think like last year, like CMAs, he produced like 4 out of the 5 ones nominated. Like, he did Lainey and Miranda, Lambert, and like Eric Church, all of Eric Church's records. And but he also did like KG Elephant too. So like, he's a rock and roll guy, and he's out there. So he gives me a lot of work, so I love him to death. But
That's awesome. Wow, that's cool. Going back to your first record that you guys put out, the song "The Ceiling." I love that song.
Oh, thank you.
So, how did that song come about? I feel like that was probably one of your most popular songs on that particular album.
Yeah.
How did that song come about? Because it's got an amazing beat to it, like an awesome rhythm.
Yeah, man. I played that riff for like 6 years, I think, that over and over, and publishers and other people told me it was shit. It was like, it was just
Really?
yeah.
It sounds good.
And they said you can't sing the riff. It's like wood burning up on the hill, and it's the same as guitar riff. And I was like, but then I was playing it for the guys, and Ricky was singing. I was like, well, it sounds pretty good. And then we took a chorus. The chorus was a song me and Ricky were working on that was kind of a little different, and put that in there. And then Taylor came in like, oh, this is kind of a different. We kind of meshed up 3 or 4 different songs that we were all working on. They're like, that's in the same key and it's kind of the same beat. I think we can kind of get there by putting a few things together. And then we didn't think it was going to be any sort of single or anything. And then people just started liking it because it's really long, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. It's just one of those weird deals. Like, well, this is kind of the cool artsy song and stuff. And then it ended up being like, probably our
Yeah, you get to 3 minutes,
most
3.5
played
minutes, and it cuts out, and you're like, okay, next song, and then it just keeps on
The
going.
outro.
But it keeps sounding good. It flows really well.
Oh, thanks.
Brian, we couldn't play that, could we? If I played it, could everybody hear it? Or no?
Probably not.
Brian's like, no. Okay, we're gonna.
Why don't
we'll
you
skip
sing it?
that.
That's it.
William, you could sing.
Brian could put it on the something. I don't know the title. Singing it? No, I'm not singing it.
So when you create an album and you're going through and you're picking the songs to go on there, do you have an idea of what songs you want to go on the radio, and then who ultimately makes that decision?
Well, really the label will make the decision because, and also if you really want to force something down their throat, they're probably not going to like it to push it very, hard. It's like, so if it's their idea, then they're like, oh yeah, like
Planting seeds.
they're gonna work really good. Yeah. But yeah, it's most likely the label or like, but you got a pretty good idea of like one that always kind of sticks out a little bit more. Like, it's not won't be like favorite track, but it'll be like one that you think, I think other people will like this and a whole lot more than the others. So that's usually, by the time the end of the record, we kind of know. It's usually between 1 or 2 that we know.
On
It's
that
gonna be
first
that.
album, which one was your favorite? If you had to guess, and I'm just pulling up my phone to look at it.
I think probably Backwoods Company, the first song.
Okay, so the first one. Okay, yeah.
The most rocking song we've ever had, and we always try to like somehow recreate it. Like, the Ceiling is a weird beast that like we don't know how that happened, but Backwoods Company, it's like the as fast as we can play. So it's the hardest rocking we get. So like we try to get that fast again, and we haven't written anything like it since. So.
What so when you go through that process, I know I'm just fascinated with the process and the producer and what comes of that. And each album, I feel like for a lot of people have a different sound. Is that like evolution through a band, or is that something that I don't know? Just explain to me what that's
That's
like.
a good question.
Yeah,
'cause it does feel like every album had a little bit different feel to it.
Yeah, because also we're album guys. I know a lot in like other genres of music, country and hip hop and everything else. It's all like singles, but like I grew up listening to whole records, and I like it to be cohesive and have like a certain vibe and everything. But when the first record came out, all these bands were kind of coming out at the same time, like Mumford & Sons and Lumineers, and all those bands were really big. And we were like, well, we don't want to be lumped in with Americana, or I didn't want to be like caught, wearing suspenders like a hair bands when Nirvana came out. I don't want to be like this fad moved on and I'm look like an idiot.
Yeah.
So we really turned our nose up or turned away from Americana and that kind of stuff, even though we love it all, but we just didn't want to be pigeonholed in that type thing. So we're like, we're a rock band or rock country or whatever it is. And so the second record we tried to it was still with Jay. Joy still produced it, but we put all kinds of noises and all kinds of things in it because we're a rock band and everything. And we should have just leaned into being Americana. We, probably be, we'd just be like, yep, we're one of you guys, and got in there. But at the time, most bands, if they do a record, you want to do the exact opposite after that record, So we put all the bells and whistles on the second record, wanting it to be something more. And then And then like by the third record, it's like, okay, this country people are liking you, and we've toured with Willie and Dwight Yoakam and a bunch of people, and it was like we're like, well, okay, maybe we'll scale it back and do this country thing. And then as soon as that got old, we're like, man, I want to rock again, you know. So you always just do. Or for us and a lot of artists I know, like Beck always does, like he'll do like an acoustic record, and the next one will be funk or something like that. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So we try to do that. And so like this last record we produced ourselves in a cabin. And now I don't want to do any of that. I just want to show up, and I wrote some songs, and here I just want to show up and play them. I don't want to produce. I don't want to engineer because that was a lot. But
I bet.
What is it like touring with Dwight? He's one of my favorites.
he was awesome. We got to talk to him a little bit, and man, what did he say? He's like, man, those are some tight pants, Dwight, or something. And he's like, yeah, I hope I don't rip my seat out. And stuff. But yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, we played a few shows out in California with him, and it was.
Who's somebody that you remember playing with or opened for that you really enjoyed working with the most?
Oh man,
And you don't have to call any names if you don't call anybody out.
I don't know. Well, it's not. You don't really work with him. You just enjoy the show.
Enjoy the
I think.
show, right.
Well, obviously, Bob Dylan was the biggest one, but we didn't get to even talk to him or anything. You know, like his hood. If his hood's on, you can't speak to him. Like so, when he came in, like his hood's on, like don't even look at him. You know. But the last tour right before the pandemic was with Bob Seger, and it was his farewell tour and his final tour and everything, and that was super righteous. It was so awesome, and because unlike like Willie or Paul Simon, they're really quiet. They're like, you know, soft. But I thought Seger was gonna croak every show, like because he's still chiefing cigs everywhere he goes. You know, it's not smoking anywhere, but he smokes in like on the plane and everything. And yeah, he's like, because they take a private jet after the show. I was like, so does he smoke on the plane? And the guys are like, yeah, they'll have the thing like, there's no smoking on anything. It's a private jet, but he still can't smoke on it. And then he's like, and he lights one up as soon as the intercom comes on, and the guy, you can't smoke in here. And he's like, well, I'm kind of paying for all this shit, so I think it's okay. You know, like that. And he's a character. He's Bob Seger. He's awesome. Yeah. And so that was really cool. And it was a blast. But that was a fun tour. And it was farewell and that kind of thing.
So
what year was that?
That was 2019.
Okay, because I saw him in Detroit. It would have been like in 06.
Uh-huh.
And I remember in between songs, he would go back and there was an oxygen tank, and he would hook up to that thing. So I don't know if that was just that period of time.
Underneath the drum riser, like, I mean, the drums are way up high. And you walk around the side, there's like, it's a little hangout room. There's like a lava lamp and everything in there. But he's got oxygen and his cigs. So like that. It's smoking too, like
No,
that's awesome. If that's not rock and roll, I don't know what is.
That's rock and roll, right?
But then he would get out there and it's just like, we're gonna practice it, like really just going at it. So yeah, he's a character.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
that came out, and also it was weird because that's when I was doing the Miranda Lambert record, and the guitar player Rob McNelly plays for Bob Seger, and so he's like, oh yeah, Bob loves the band, and I was like, really? Like, how does he even know about us? And he's like, you guys should come out on tour with us. And I'm like, you don't just say you should come out with Bob Seger. I was like, we'll do anything. And then like talk to Bob about it, and he's down. And why don't you guys just pick out 8 dates? There's 20 dates. Pick out 8 of them. And I wasn't gonna pick out like Ohio or anything like that. So we picked out like all the West Coast, like from like Spokane over down and everything. And then he's like, why didn't you guys play the rest of the tour with us? He's like, you only asked for 8 days. I'd have gladly done, Madison Square Garden or whatever, they played in New York. But yeah, and it was like 3 weeks later, we were just out. And it was really weird though, because he did 1 day on, 2 days off, 1 day. So our set's like 30 or 45 minutes. And so we do our 30 or 45 minute set and then have 2 days off before the next show. And they're going to fly to wherever all over the world, come back and meet us at the next show. But we had time to kill, like 2 days. And so we just, like, we went camping, we did, like, national parks, like, show up to the arena smelling like campfire smoke and everything. But, yeah, it was hard because, I mean, we just, drank and hung out, didn't have anything to do for, like, it was only 8 shows, but it took, like, 2 weeks to do. So
Wow. So that was before the pandemic, and I noticed that one of the albums you you put out. Not the last one, but the second to last one was in 2020. So how did that transition? Did you start writing those songs like early 2020 and then all hell break loose and you release your album? And
Well, that record, we put that was just medium rarities. It was all the B-sides and covers and stuff we've done. Like, it wasn't a record we went in and recorded. It was like, when we record a record, there's always like 2 or 3 that you leave off. And and not because they're shitty, just because they're like, we might have another song that sounds like that we think's better, or the subject is not in line with the rest of the record or something like that. So there's always like 2 or 3 leftover songs, and don't ever do anything with them. So it's kind of, it's the rare, those kind of things. Like,
the rare
yeah,
ones.
like Nirvana has like Incesticides that for them, and everybody's kind of got one of those records. So I don't say it's like a real record, but it's we put it out, but it's not like a like a studio record.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
What's the philosophy behind like putting on a record and having 9 or 10 songs, or some people put out a record and always have like 14 or 15? Like, what is there rhyme or reason to that, or just?
I don't know. We always have way too many. I think the first record, we recorded 18 songs for that first record, and we demoed 30. Like, we had written 30 songs or something, and here we're gonna whittle it down. But then we couldn't really decide because we were a new band and we had multiple singers, so we're just used to writing our whole records by ourselves. So we just had so many songs, and that's probably why it's so good, because we had a lot to choose from. But and I mean, even this one right now, we just did our 19th song for what we're going to record, I guess. So we always just have a whole bunch and try to whittle it down a little bit, because every song, you always think the song's great you're working on, but then like after listening to it, it's like, that song's not very good.
That song sucks. Take it out.
That song sucks. Yeah, I don't want
Take that
anybody
song
to
out.
ever hear this.
Does
Yeah.
writing come pretty easily to you, or do you have to find certain inspiration, or what?
Lyrics are tougher for me because it also depends, like, when you're writing for other people, and there's been times where I got heavy into that, and that's a different deal, because like there's like I wrote with one person that was like on The Voice or something, and everything I said sounded great. It's like sipping a beer, and be like, sipping a beer, and it was like, man, that sounds great, dude. But I wouldn't say that if I was doing the Wild Feathers. So, and it's also because country music's kind of like real literal and real like that kind of mode. So it's different. It's just different for writing for other people and then writing for ourselves, I guess. But I can always just find a melody and play an instrument, any instrument. So I can always just kind of jam, and I know and record and everything. But coming up with lyrics for us, it has to have a certain twinge of like coolness or interesting type thing, like to make it. To make
Is that
all
a
the feathers.
process that you have? Like, do you have a daily or weekly process for writing to kind of get you in that flow?
Yeah. I mean, usually there's a co-write at least once a week. But then, it's not just the write. You have to like, okay, maybe meet up with somebody. There's times when like, you go Music Row, meet up in an office, somewhere, and there's nothing on the walls, and okay, we got to do something. And so there's that. But then you also got to like, okay, well now we got to demo it and put it in a package for somebody. And that could be the most challenging thing. It's like, okay, we got this song, or we've got a verse and a chorus, we got to finish it somehow. And so it'll take like a week or so to get it all kind of wrapped up and everything. Especially like if I write a song that's not in my wheelhouse, like the song I worked on this one, it was like a real honky, like called The Outskirts. But I was like, I can't even demo this to show it, because I was like, on the outskirts. Like I couldn't. It would sound like a Saturday Night Live thing if I did it. So I was to hire somebody.
More cowbell.
Like, yeah,
we need more cowbell, Joel.
I have to like hire somebody to sing this thing, So, but that's for writing for other people and everything. So yeah, it takes, because you got to get it in a package. You got to get a palatable package. Like everybody's like, oh, I can hear through the demo. Just send me the acoustic guitar and you singing it. It's like, you're not going to like that as much as when you hear a slick, demo.
Going back to your last record, you mentioned that this is one that you guys produced yourselves, right?
Yeah,
Alvarado. So my favorite song on here isn't listed as one of the favorites, but Out on the Road.
Oh, yeah.
So this one really sounds like this was a song that came from your experience as a group on the road. You know, like you had a verse in there about scraping money, you know, drinking thousands of beers. And,
Millions of beers.
So take us back through that song. I'm just really interested because it's not one that's got like a star beside an apple, whatever, but it was a really good melody and it flowed so nicely.
Man, that Taylor wrote that out on the road. And that was just an easy jam because, and also the beat, we play that live like pretty much every night just because this is, you know, hey, we're in it, you know, we're in the song right now, you know, we're on the road. But yeah, it's just one of those literal songs. It's you know, it's just a true story. And that's why I think you can, like, oh, we can sell this, you know. If it would have been, if the lyrics or anything would have been different, it probably wouldn't have worked. It's just, it felt like it was just perfect. And we recorded it really like kind of like stripped down with like, I don't know. It's just kind of a different mode. We play a little bit more rockin' live just because it just tends to go that way. Mm-hmm. But Taylor's like, oh, I got this one, and it's about us on the road, or I've been playing it for the past few weeks, or something like that, or you'll hear him strumming it. And then like, oh, you know, because we're in the cabin, we're just like, what do you got? You got one? I got one. Here's, everybody's kind of got one, and then we just worked it up. And it was really probably took, you know, probably 3 or 4 takes, and that was it, and it was done, you know?
I mean, it flows really well, and I like it. So you're singing in a cabin. Did you guys, like, pull like a Queen thing where you just went together and got together and...
We did. It was in Van Leer, like an hour and a half away, and we didn't tell the Airbnb that we were going to be recording. It was like, oh, it's a writing retreat. We're going to write out here and like have fun. So we moved all the furniture out on the porch, and we, you know, like a big wraparound porch and everything. So we moved all the furniture out there and put all the gear in there. And it was around Christmas time, so there was like a Christmas tree and everything else we had to move. And but also we didn't know if it would sound good because it could acoustically sound bad, you know, like for drums, it's the main thing. So we just lucked out because there's like a balcony in the house, you know, like, so it's really tall, so we could put some mics really up high and everything. And so we just lucked out that it sounded good. But it was an old, like, you know, it had been restored, but it was like 1800s cabin and everything.
Oh, very cool.
But we did that because I think I already said this, I don't know. But before every record we do that, we kind of get together and just hash out all the songs, figure it out, and then we do like a little demo on my just computer, you know, but and then we go into the studio and with the producer. By the time we've done that, we've written the song, here's the voice memo, did acoustic demo, or figure out where we're nail down all the lyrics and everything, then play it with the band to get the arrangement, and then you play it in the studio. It's like the 4th time you've recorded it. And so we listen back to like the demos which are recorded really crappy from like the cabins we go to. We went down to like one in Muscle Shoals, one in North Carolina, but we listen to the demos like, oh, the awesome, like it sounds all, the passion is there, but the mics and everything else is just crudely, it sounds like crap. So we're like, okay, if we can, since it's the pandemic, we could just scrape up all the mics we can get and borrow and rent and get all the cool gear and bring it out. So when we actually work up the song, we're actually recording the record at the same time. And so that was the whole idea behind it and everything.
Very cool.
But yeah.
That's good stuff. We were talking a little bit before we started recording today, and it harkens back a little bit to, you know, you talking about writing for other artists, and, you know, that side of the business. And it's always fascinated me how many layers there are, you know, to the music industry, where all you can utilize your talents. And one of those things that you were just talking about is playing on some other people's records recently. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Jay Joyce, the producer of records, he asked me, and this is so Jay, if you met him, you know, it'd be like he's like, man, I need a really crappy bass player on this record. And I'm like, dude, that's exactly what I can do, man. I'm like that.
I know a guy.
Yeah, and I just started playing bass when we first started the Wildfeathers. I wasn't playing bass, but when we got dropped off Interscope, we would just hire a bass player and a drummer because we were just the 3 of us singing, and I'm playing guitar. So we couldn't afford to hire a bass player, and we started doing like that residency. I started playing bass because I had one, and I played just to make money for other people. But yeah, so Jay used me on Lainey Wilson's record, and that went really good. And it's like, oh, I think I'm gonna do Miranda Lambert's record in a couple weeks. And then so I did that, and it went really good. So I started getting some more gigs and everything like that, and then did Lainey's last one too. But yeah, it's really weird because I think that just depends on the producer. Like he's like, don't play like a session player. And there's plenty of session players, which and I overplay, or like I was like, you want me to do what I do on the Wild Feathers records? It's like, yeah. I was like, you know, and just ham it up. So yeah, so then it's kind of progressed from there, and it kind of became a bass player. So that's I probably made more money playing bass than all the years of singing and everything else.
So you get producers that call you and say, hey, Joe, we need a...
Or just an artist or anybody that needs a bass player or something like that.
So that's what's always like, you're sitting in a concert and you're like, oh, they bring somebody in to play bass, or they bring somebody in to play drums. And I'm sitting there thinking like, they've never played together before. Well,
yeah,
they don't regularly play together. So I've always wondered, how do they just jump in and it all sounds as good as it does? So it kind of sounds like what you're talking about.
Depends on how good the players are. Yeah, because sometimes, I mean, the drummer's got to be great. Everybody else can kind of do their, can dance around, but the drummer's got to be good. And I mean, I've not met a bad musician in Nashville, so I don't know. So but when you go in there, they just chart it out like the Nashville number system, and like here's a song, and some of the songs, like this, the one and only time you play it, I'm just reading it as it goes, and then it's over, and you're like, all right, well, that was easy. And it's also doing those things is way less pressure, just because if it's a Wild Feathers record, it's like my whole life's wrapped up in this. My face is on here, like this is my whole identity. And that was like, that sound good, great. Next song, like it's nice to not have like the burden of doing the whole thing.
So when they call you in, you mentioned it was Lainey's or Miranda's, and you're like, you really didn't have any time to prepare. You just
No, you don't prepare at all. No, you just show up, you hear, they'll play the song most of the time, and like, oh, here's how the song goes. And as she's playing it, Rob McNally, the guy that plays Bob Seger, he sat there and just wrote out the thing. And the guy's like, make copies of this, and they bring it out, and then we just play it. And it's like, and then Jay will be like, okay, let's try switching that up or switching this up, and you just kind of work it out as it's going.
Yeah, I guess it's the talent. You're making it sound pretty modest.
Yeah,
I'm thinking back to high school band, and it wasn't that easy.
Those records are different than like band, when you're in a band and you have to live and play. But that's like you were saying before, like with the music business, everybody kind of keeps in their own thing. You're a writer, you're a session guy, you're the road band, and so a lot of the country people, their road band doesn't play on the records. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. It's a lot of the same, like 5 or 6 guys plays on every record on country radio.
Really?
Yeah.
And I imagine when I go out on the road, they're maybe taking a few more liberties and not exactly reading sheet music.
Oh yeah, they'll know it by then. By the time they get on the road and everything. But yeah.
Is that a fun process, like sitting down with somebody like Miranda and going through that? And how long does that take, I guess? Is that weeks, months? What is that?
I think it was a couple weeks.
Okay.
I think we did and I don't have to be there every day when we get the basic tracks. I mean, they spend a lot more time singing and things like that, or working on guitar solos than the bass and drums. But it is a lot of fun. The dudes playing are awesome guys, or on those records, and guys that Jay uses. And it is a lot of fun because everybody just hangs out and tells stories the whole time, and then like, okay, it's time to work for a little bit. All right, and it's pretty. I think it's pretty easy. It's pretty great. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a fun gig. I wouldn't want it to be my only gig. Like it's like, oh, well, I'm just now I'm just a session bass player in town. Like I love doing it, but I want it to be my only job.
Yeah.
And you have a record at the Ryman, is that correct?
Yeah.
So tell us like how that came about and what that experience was like.
When did we do that? I was like 15 or 16. Yeah, it was like our big hometown show from like after the first tour or first record cycle. Record cycle, like, you put out a record and you kind of tour and promote it for like a year, and you do a couple tours, and but we and then you kind of regroup and start getting the game plan for the next one. But it was kind of at the end, and it was like a big hometown. We're coming home, after touring the whole world and everything, and it was great. It was like we sold out the Ryman. We couldn't sell out the Ryman now, but
That's awesome. Yeah.
But then we could, and and then at last minute we were asking Warner Brothers at the time was our label, and we were like, can we record it? And like, no, it's way too much money. It costs. You're taking a pay cut by playing the Ryman in general anyway, and it would cost a whole bunch to get everything recorded properly. And then like a week before, right before it, they said, okay, let's do it. So it added a little pressure, and then, there was the opportunity of like most live records aren't live or anything, but ours, we didn't do any overdubs. And it's like, this is like a time capsule of what we sounded like at the time. So there's things that are missed notes and fast and slow and all kinds of weird stuff on the record. But I thought it was awesome because that's exactly what it was, you know, like.
That's the way it is. I mean,
yeah, I know. I always thought it's funny when like do a radio station, like, can you come in and play the song acoustic? It's like, we just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars making this record for you to play this on your radio station. You want us to come in and just play it at 6 a.m. when we can't sing and everything? Like, yeah, I'm gonna play this. You know, like, I was like, we just spent all this money on this record. Play the song off the record. You know, but
They want to hear the real thing, though. They
Yeah,
wanna
yeah, I
Hear the
know.
real Joel.
yeah, there's.
So what's the real Joel like? What are you guys doing whenever you're not playing guitar or bass or?
Well, that it takes up most of my time.
Yeah.
But I like to play golf.
Really?
Yeah.
Eric's a great golfer. You
Really?
guys should go out sometime.
Really? No.
Absolutely.
Lying
fine.
about
I'm not
that.
a good golfer,
I'm a
but
decent top golfer.
It's a good
I
job.
did shave some points off my game during the pandemic though,
Yeah.
because you could walk the courses for free and everything. So, and also didn't have anything to do. So yeah, so I play golf, and I got into skateboarding again during the pandemic for just like
Oh, nice.
maybe a couple weeks, and I hadn't skateboarded since I was like 14, and I fell down one time. I went and bought a new skateboard and everything. I was like, I'm just gonna get into this. I can go over there, Two Rivers, and then I fell down one time, and I hurt for like a week.
Yeah.
It felt so like, how did I do this? I don't know how. Like, I just one little spill, I felt like crap. I was just like, man. And so I hung it up. I thought I was gonna break an arm or
I
something.
hadn't played
but-
adult softball in I don't know how long, and probably 10, 12 years. And they signed me up to play during the summer, and we would do double headers. And I swear I hurt for 3 days afterwards. Because you're out there playing like you're 19 or 20 again, right? And you're running
yeah.
around the field, and then the day after you can't move. So
Oh,
I feel
man.
you. We're too old for that kind of stuff.
Father Time doesn't treat you well. Did you buy new shoes and all? You get Vans or no?
Huh?
Did you buy new shoes for skateboarding or just a skateboard?
No, just the skateboard. I got plenty of old Vans around, but yeah, man, it was rough. I was like, I thought I could just get back into it and just ease because like, oh, I'm just gonna cruise, you know,
Yeah.
and do the thing. But then you get out there and you're thinking, man, I think I'd be able to try a kick flip or something like that, and it's just disastrous.
Oh, man.
But yeah, man, I played a softball league back in Tulsa, and it was just, you know, a bunch of the rock and rolling dudes, and we played, and like TU, like these guys were off. We used to like, you know, drink beer like in the dugout and hide it and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And but we played a full blown, like, it was like ball players from like Tulsa, and I swear to God, it was the scariest thing I've ever witnessed. Like, even the guys running by me, they were all, you know, all way over 6 foot, and sounded like a horse, like running, like just like you get the ball. I didn't even want to tag them. It was so scary, and like that. Everybody else took it like nobody took it serious. We didn't win a game, and it was all the other bars in town, but this one bar had like all the baseball players from the college that worked there, and it was totally unfair. But yeah, it was scary. But yeah, dude, I love baseball. Huge football fan too. But yeah,
Titans?
Titans all the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and now I'm also turning away from Oklahoma towards the Vols.
Okay.
Oh, there you
Oh.
go. Hey.
Not a fair.
easy.
This isn't recent. This isn't a fair weather fan thing, is it?
This is totally recent.
So he admits it.
We beat LSU, and it's like, maybe I could be a Vols fan. We beat Florida. I'm really feeling warm to this team. We beat Alabama. Oh, that's it.
All in, yeah.
I'm
dude,
all
that's
in.
all
I'm all
Orange
in.
every game.
No,
He's gonna have Rocky Top on his next album.
yeah. It's called Rocky Top. No.
I actually have a good friend back home who played for Oklahoma.
Oh,
back
really?
back in the college days,
Wow.
2001, 2002.
cool.
Yeah, he's actually pretty famous. You can look him up on YouTube, and he scored a touchdown on a kickoff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang. That's
More
awesome.
famous than you or no?
Oh, way more famous than me. Way more famous than me.
So what's in the near future for the band? What's in the horizon?
Well, we're working on a record. We've
Mm-hmm.
been writing a whole bunch and just demoing a whole lot of tracks. The our drummer's his baby's due next week,
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we've been off for this whole month. And then we just got a run of shows in December. Just keep the lights on and just play. We're going up to like Chicago and Indy and a few other places. But yeah, we're kind of working on a record, and then we're talking to some buddies about touring like in February and March. right now. Nothing confirmed yet, so I'm not gonna say anything. But yeah, I got a tour. But those kind of things, once we get the record, we know what we're dealing with. Then we're gonna get a big game plan for a big push and what's gonna go to radio and all that kind of stuff. So the work really begins.
And if we want to get some tickets, because this podcast is probably really big for your career, obviously.
And Coors Light's career.
Yeah,
And
what
Coors Light.
career?
Thanks, Coors Light. Where can people find you, and where can people find Wild Feathers?
Wild Feathers on all internet things.
That's kind of what we say.
All
the internet
Just
things.
look that up on the Google. On there, yeah. We're around and still kicking and everything.
Awesome.
Right on, man. Can we take it out with some speed questions?
Yeah.
First, how do you take on the look of a rock star? Is it just a lot of black shirts?
Black
or-
shirt, boots. No.
You got it going, man. The hair helps too.
all
the hair,
all
hair
genres.
helps too.
I know, I'm getting a snip tomorrow, but
There you go.
It's a tragedy. All right, man. Where's your happy place?
my basement.
Basement. Elaborate.
The basement, the studio. It's
Okay.
my house underneath the house, really.
Gotcha.
Top house is my wife's. The basement's my house.
Love it. What would you do if you weren't doing what you're doing now?
Oh man, I don't know, and I can't be a professional golfer, so I don't know,
Skateboarder?
man. I'd probably be selling insurance like my dad.
Hey.
Hey.
All
Oh,
right.
man,
there
we're
we
gonna
go.
Have to edit that out.
There we go. You
That
got to
made
keep that
William's
in,
day.
Brian. You got to
We
keep
gotta
that in.
edit that
Keep
one
that in
out.
there.
Who's your hero or person you look up to the most?
Probably my dad. Yeah, I don't know. He started his own business, and grew it. He just sold it, so yeah.
Oh, congratulations
So,
to him,
yeah.
man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for him.
That's awesome.
Most impactful band.
Oh, the Beatles by far. No questions asked on that.
You know what I learned the other day? Sorry to interrupt.
You're good.
That all their music was done within like 7 years. Is that true?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah. Just a couple records a year.
was it.
Sometimes 3.
Crazy.
Really?
Yeah. And all before they were at 30. So
Man, they were some rotten fools.
And lastly, what is your superpower? Either one you have or wish you had.
my superpower, probably my wife would say, I'm a product tester. It's if anything can be broken, I can break it. Like anything like rip a door off the hinges on accident or, just trying to like test something out and breaking it or whatever. But yeah, that's
Ripping doors off the hinges, you and the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
two people
yeah,
that no, do that on accident.
I just are kind of like, what is it, bull in the China shot or whatever that
Yeah,
saying, something
yeah.
like that thing. Yeah, that will be my superpower is of accidentally breaking the unbreakable.
That's why we got aluminum cans and not bottles for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there will be one broken.
Aluminum cans.
Well, Joel, this has been awesome, man. Normally
Dude,
we're sitting here
thank
with
you, Joel.
With business folks, and there's a lot of business kind of in your career. So it's been great to hear how
Thanks,
you made it
dude.
to where you're at now. We thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
thanks,
everything
man.
with us. Thank you guys for tuning in. Just a reminder, follow us on all the internet things, as Joel would say.
The Google.
Yeah.
The Google.
Google.
Use the Google machine to find us if that's what it takes. But yeah, what you sipping on? B3 on Instagram. B3 Business Bonding and Beer on Instagram. Probably the best place to find us. Big thanks to our guy Brian Holloway with Black Fox Media behind the camera here, making everything work for us here on What You Sipping On. And don't forget to come out and check us out at our B3 networking events. See y'all soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.